Hey you guys, someone asked me how we could go about creating something like this in Filemaker. Now if you look at this, this is a schedule for something like, I would guess like a restaurant or something where people work, and it's their schedule for like a whole week of all the hours they're gonna have to work every single day. So you have a bunch of employees on this side, they all have their names, then there's a job that they will have to do, and then there are all the dates in the week here, Monday to Sunday, and all the times that they're going to be working. Now if you look at this, this is a typical spreadsheet. This is how you would go about doing this in a spreadsheet, I guess. But two things that stand out to me. The one, the first thing that I found kind of most annoying is that a person is going to do a certain job, but that person is going to have to do that job that whole week, because in this setup you do not have the ability to say, for instance, this person has to do service on a couple of days and then maybe dishwashing on some other days. In this setup you can't do that. Every person is doing whichever job they're doing for that whole week, and only the next week could you, in theory, according to this system, do another job. Now in this setup you could say to someone on a certain day that they have to do another job, but that is then not really recorded in this system because it allows you only to give one job once per week. Another thing that I've noticed is that even for a spreadsheet, this is kind of not good because you can't really calculate with this. This person is working from 5 to 10, but I can't really calculate this because this is all in one field. I just typed in all these numbers just like randomly because I can't even calculate all these times. You'd need like a beginning and an end time. And sometimes here there are even like 2 beginning and end times in one field. So even for a spreadsheet, this is not entirely right. Now, how would we go about creating something like this? So of course the essence is the planning of a bunch of staff for a whole week. How would we go about creating something like this in Filemaker? Now the first thing you need to do is figure out how you're going to structure all your data. And in Filemaker, of course, you work with tables and relationships, and so the first thing you need to determine is well, how many tables do I need to store all of this stuff? So let's start with the simple one. You have employees, so that would be like one table. If we maybe start to make a list, which is what I usually do, then you could just say that, well, I'm gonna need a table for employees, right? That's where we're going to store a bunch of stuff. Like for instance, we're going to store like an ID. Of course, everyone's going to get an ID. And then let's deal with the formatting here. Everyone will have a first name, a last name, and I like to calculate those into a full name as well. And then maybe an email address, and then you can add whichever ones you want, like a date of birth or some notes. Or whatever you want. Okay, so that's the first one. So what else do we need in terms of tables? We have every person, they're all doing a certain job. But more than that, they're going to be doing it on a certain date. So on any given date, a person will be doing a specific job from a start time to an end time, and that will then result in a sort of total time. Now you've got all these dates that are separate, but essentially on every date you're going to have the same kind of information. On every date you will have a job that's being done from a start time to an end time, which will result into a total. Okay, so that gives us a couple of fields. So let's make another table, and I'm going to say like dates could be a table. And then, of course, it'll have an ID. Now, every date and every job is going to be linked to a certain employee. So, employee ID FK, which is the ID foreign key, which is database speak for every date. I do want to be able to relate this to a certain employee. So, I need to store the employee's ID in a field. Then, there's going to be, of course, a date. There's going to be a start time and an oops, I can't even type. Start time and an end time. This will result in a certain amount of hours, so we're going to do a calculation of hours. Because I saw that there's going to be like a total amount of hours, in this case for the whole week, I can do like a summary of the hours. And then, of course, when we're going to calculate for the whole week, I'm going to have to do some sort of a calculation of the week number. I can easily get that from the date. Every time I select a date, that date will fall in a specific week, so FileMaker can very easily calculate that one. Another thing I need to do is for every date, every person is going to be doing a certain job, so I'll need that field as well. And I think that's a good start for me. So visually I can now already see, well, I've got two tables, and my employee IDFK is kind of this ID. The ID of my employee is going to be the item, the field that relates both of these together. So that's the first step, is the preparation of how we're going to do all of this in FileMaker. Okay, so now that we know this, we know which fields we're going to need, we can dive into FileMaker. I'm going to make this one disappear because it's going to be in the background. Okay, so I've made a new file and I've named it schedule. Because I've named it schedule, when we go to File, Manage Database, FileMaker has been so kind as to provide me with a field, with a table that's called schedule, but I don't really need that one. I'm going to need employees. So I'm going to change the name of this field to employees. If I look back at my, actually I'll just keep this here for just a second. If I look at that list here, then I actually already know that I'm going to need two tables. So I'm going to need employees, and I've named this one dates. And then I can go into the employees. I can either double click this one or go to fields and then select my employees. I can see that FileMaker 17 has already created a bunch of fields for me. These are pretty basic ones that are very handy to have, especially if you're working in a file with multiple users. And my primary key is a text, which is an auto enter calculation. That has been provided by FileMaker, so that's fine. We'll just use those. Okay, for my employees, I'm going to need a first name, which is going to be a text. That's good. Then I'm going to need a last name, which is also going to be a text. And now I've got this C full name. Is C underscore is because it's a calculation, and full name because I would like to get kind of the first and last name combined in a separate field. So I'm going to create that field. And just because I called it C full name doesn't make it a calculation. I could have made this a calculation field, but a calculation is something that always needs to be calculated, and that takes up processing power. Sometimes, in some cases, it's sufficient to have a calculation that is not necessarily a calculation field. And in this case, this is the perfect example for how you can do a simple type of calculation. The full name is going to be calculated within this table of employees, where I also have all the information that I need to create this full name. So therefore I can use a very simple type of calculation, which is an auto enter calculation. And so what this is going to do is it'll allow me to create a calculation, and anytime that you change a value in either one of those fields, this calculation will be updated, but it will be simply stored as a simple text. So therefore there's no need to recalculate, and therefore it's simpler, it's cleaner, it's faster. Anytime you can keep your database free of calculations, that's always a good thing. Now, if any of those fields that you need in your calculation are in another or related table, then you will not be able to use this. This kind of stuff only works when all the fields used in the calculation are inside the same table. So I'm going to do a first name. I'm going to add it together with my last name. But if I would do this, first name and last name, they will just simply be stuck together. So you will have no space in between them. So I'm going to have to add a space. And I'm going to do that by using these quotation marks. I'm going to add a space in between them. And then I'm going to add another one of these AND operators. So basically, the full name consists of three elements. It's the value from a field, first name. It's a space, which is a text, so it needs to be in quotes. And then, of course, I have my last name. Okay, if I hit OK, then I get a few options here. It is going to be a calculated value, but it says that it will not replace the existing value if there is a value in that field. Now, that's something I don't want in this case, because what's going to happen then is I'm going to enter my first name. My first name will be entered in this field, but then if I enter my my last name, this calculation will not update anymore because the first name is already in there. Now in this case, I do want to overwrite that first name in order to add the last name and then come up with the full name. So I'm going to have to uncheck this box so that I do replace the value that is in that field if I update either one of those fields. Also, if I misspell a name and I have to like go in there again to retype it, then I also want my full name to update. So therefore it's very important to uncheck that little box. Okay, what else did I need in this one? I needed an email, which is also a text field, and I could add a date of birth, which is going to be a date field. So you can just select date there. Okay, that looks pretty good if you ask me. Oh yeah, I had some notes that I had here. Whoops, it's not going to be a date field, that's going to be a text field, so let's change that. Okay, good. So now I have all these fields that I needed. Now I can go to my dates right here, and I can start adding those fields. So again, an ID, I already have that. Then I'm going to have an employee ID FK. Now I used to always use this as a number field, but these primary keys, these new primary keys that FileMaker 17 make, they are of the type of text. So I'm going to have to leave this one as a text as well. So this will be my employee ID. Then I'm going to need a date, which is going to be a date field, obviously. I will have a job that someone's going to do. That's going to be a text field. I will have a start time, which is going to be a time field. And I will have an end time. And then I can calculate C_the hours. And that can also be a time field, but again, I'm going to use the same trick as I used with my full name. I've got my start and end time in here, so I can just have a auto enter calculation, which takes the end time minus the start time. And then I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to again uncheck this field so that if I ever change my time, my amount of hours gets updated and always gives me the correct amount of hours in between the start and end time. So I can also summarize these hours by doing an S hours and making this a summary field. And then if I create this one, I have to kind of fill in the settings, and it's going to give me the total of hours. The fun thing about a summary field is that you can use it in different contexts. So you can summarize for a certain employee. You can summarize all the hours they've done in total, or you can start summarizing by the week or by the month or by the year, so that you get different kinds of totals all from one and the same field. I've got another field in here, which is my C week number. I'm already thinking ahead, of course, so when you're working with this kind of scheduling, like where you need to do week stuff, sometimes you're going to need to know which week you are in, and so I'm going to make a C week number, which for me is going to be a simple number field. And again, this will be an auto enter calculation where I will take the week. And so you have week of year and week of year fiscal. I like to use week of year fiscal because it allows me two options. Of course, I'm going to specify the date, which is in the date field, but I can also specify the starting day. Now, I think very often it will start on a Sunday, but in my country, my week starts on a Monday. So I can select the starting day. And if you go and look at the FileMaker documentation, it'll say that the starting day is 1 for Sunday, 2 for Monday. So I'm going to hit 2. I'm going to enter 2 in there so that my week actually starts on a Monday and not on a Sunday. Okay, cool. So let's again uncheck this one so that if I ever change the date, my week number is correctly updated as well. Okay, I think this gives me a good thing to start with. Now we can go into the third tab here, the relationships, and already set that up as well. Let's make it a bit bigger here. Okay, so I've got my primary key of employees that is going to be related to my employee IDFK right here. And I'm going to want to go into the options of this relationship to specify that when I am on a layout of an employee, I want to be able to create dates here in order to schedule this employee to work. So I'm going to have to check this one. Now, if I delete an employee, do I want to keep these dates or not? Well, if my employee gets deleted, which I probably wouldn't really do in this case. Even if an employee gets fired, you still want to keep all their records. But in case you've made some sort of a mistake and you've made like a weird employee and then made a bunch of date records, which doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense. But anyway, you're going to want to, if you delete this employee, you will be left with a bunch of orphaned records here that are related to no one because that employee is now gone. If that is the case, you might want to also delete all of these dates. And that's what this second checkbox is about. So now if you delete an employee, all their like scheduled work stuff will also be deleted as well. Okay, that looks kind of good. That looks like a good start. So what do we have right now? Filemaker has made for me two layouts. This one has a bunch of fields on it. This one does not. It doesn't really matter because usually what I like to do is use this one in table view, and then I can just modify and add and just add all of these fields here, and that gives me kind of an Excel type of look into my data. Now just for fun, I'll just make a few employees, so I'll make the obvious John Doe, and as you can see, as I've typed the word John in the full name, John has appeared. I've just typed the word Doe, so as soon as I leave this field, I'm gonna tab out of it. You can see that his full name, this calculation gets updated and the full name kind of shows up in here. I'm going to add another one, the obligatory Jane Doe, obviously, and then I'll just add one more, let's say a Jill, whatever. Okay, so this gives me a couple of employees. Now let's go into my dates here. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go into layout mode so we can start doing some actual work. I would like to create a new layout based on my employees, and I'm going to call this one lay employees. The reason I like to make a new one, and I'm going to make this for the computer inform view, is then I can have a layout that the user can work on, but me as a developer, I can always go back to my employees in table view. If I go in browse mode, then that's what you'll get, so that I can see it, have a look at the actual data that's actually in the field. Sometimes if you use like checkboxes or radio button sets, it obscures the data that's in your actual fields, so therefore I like to always keep these separated. So now I have a layout for employees and I have a table view that I can use for myself. Okay, let's add some stuff here. So let's go to edit layout, and FileMaker 17 has these new side panes that you can use, and then you can just kind of get a bunch of fields from here and throw them up here. First name, last name. Okay, something I usually like to do is I like to put the full name of the person here, so I'm going to do insert merge field, and I'm going to do see full name. And I'll just make that a bit bigger. So in order to do that, I'm going to hide this side pane again by clicking this button. Otherwise, you guys can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to get my formatting toolbar, set this one a bit bigger, maybe bold, like this. Okay, cool. And then I can very clearly see, whoops, I can clearly see which user I'm working with. Now I can browse through my different employees, and well, I don't have, I actually add a bunch of other fields as well. That's right. Maybe I could get those out as well. You know what I usually like to do is maybe make a tabbed object for this sort of stuff. Let's make a big one, and let's do details, and then let's do jobs or scheduling or something. There, because that way I can put their details kind of away here. Which did I add? Email, date of birth, notes, all of that stuff. I can just put that stuff here, and then my scheduling can be put in here. Now I don't really need a footer here, so I'm going to delete that one. Gives me just a tiny little bit more space. Cool. Okay. So now I've got my employee there you go, we just put some information in there. Now that I've got my employee layout kind of set up, I can start adding the other kind of information. So now it's time to start to add all of this like scheduling stuff where I can like enter the times that they need to work. This one I'm kind of done with, so let's get rid of it. Okay, so I can get related information on this layout by using a portal, which is a thing. I'm gonna hide this side pane again because I don't need it. And a portal basically allows you to see records from a related table. If you want to make a portal, you need to click on this one here. And then we just drag a big box on here. And then in this portal, what I want to show is data from a related table, which is called dates. I'm going to want to sort this by date because I want my data to be kind of a bit organized. I'm not going to do any filtering. I am going to allow the deletion of portal records. If I make a mistake, I want to delete that whole line. I want to allow vertical scrolling, that's fine, and I will just use the alternate row state as well. That means that one line is white, the other is lightly gray, and then you can slightly more easily see the difference between the lines. Okay, if I do that, then it'll ask me which fields I want to have in this portal. And so I can choose. I don't need any of those automatic ones up top. I don't need employee to be in there because every record that I make in here will automatically be linked to this employee. So I don't need to have that. I'm going to have a date. I'm going to have a job, start time and end time, the total amount of hours for that job. And do I want to show the week number? Maybe not. Okay, cool. Now FileMaker by default makes these fields for me that are that have no border. I don't usually like that, so they are called the minimal edit box. I like to put them on default so that I can at least see the outline of the fields. Okay, so now let's go and edit some stuff here. I want to make this first date field a drop-down calendar, and I want to include an icon to show and hide the calendar. This date field is a bit wide, so I'm going to set it to 120 in terms of width, and that will give me a little more space for other fields. I'm going to need to put some how do you call those? Labels up top, just so I know which is which. And I can just make one and then just alt drag it over there to copy it. Okay, I've got my job field as well, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set it really close by here and then nudge it 2 points back. Okay, good. And then the start time and end time, these fields don't need to be that wide, so I'm going to set them to, like, say 60 wide. It's just a guess. I don't know if that's going to be correct or not, but we'll see. Okay, I can select all of these and maybe put them a bit closer, and then I'll have to give them some labels as well. So let's alt drag this job over here, and let's say start time. And again, this is kind of the boring repetitive work you sometimes have to do in FileMaker, but yeah, you do need labels, so otherwise it's going to be a mess. Hours. Okay, and then you just kind of have to align them up a bit with the field so that it looks kind of neat and organized. Okay, if you look in browse mode, I'm always going to show up on my details tab, which maybe is not the most important tab, so I'm going to go back into edit layout. I'm going to double click my portal, and I'm going to say that my default front tab can be the scheduling tab, because that tab is more interesting to me. So if I go into browse mode now, I will automatically show up in my scheduling tab, which is good. And then I can just say for this week on the Monday, I'm going to do a job of, let's say, service. Start time is going to be 09. End time is going to be, let's say 18. Boom. And that means that's a total of 9 hours. Now, a few things that are kind of annoying here. This time shows up differently than these times. And when I tap out of here, I arrive in my total hours calculation, but I don't really need to be there because that's calculated automatically. I don't want to be able to edit this stuff. So a few things that I need to change here. First of all these hour fields here, I can go into, and you guys can't see this because my layout is too high. I can go into my data tab right here, and I can go to the bottom. I set this as time, and I can say that this needs to be in hours and minutes. That'll be a good change. And then what I can do is this one is going to be a calculation anyway. I don't want to edit this. And in the same data tab, I can uncheck the browse mode. So that means that this field is not available to me in browse mode. And then I can't accidentally mess this up either. So that's kind of good. Another one for this job. I'm going to be entering data in here a lot, and it's always going to be the same. And when you have a situation like that, it's best to make a drop-down list. Let's make a new one for jobs. Now, I'm not going to provide with a bunch of jobs, because then if I ever want to make a new job, it's kind of annoying. So I'll just use the values from the field, and the field is going to be from dates, job. So any values that come up in this field should also show up in that dropdown, and that kind of is a very handy way of, let's say I want to make a new date, so the 30th. It gives me service, but I don't want service. I want dishwashing. I think I didn't type that correctly. And from, let's say, from 10 to 17. Okay, and I don't know if you noticed it, but as soon as I tapped out of 17, it didn't show up in here because this field is not available in browse mode. It just flew all the way up here. And now I can just enter another day, let's say the 1st, and it only shows me service now, but that's because I was just like entering data the whole time. If I click out of here so that FileMaker gets to kind of save whatever data it entered, I will now see that in this drop down I get both dishwashing and service. Now I can add another one as well, preparation, and then soon, let's say 08 to 16. And then as soon as you start working with this for a little while, eventually your drop down starts to contain all the different possible jobs that you would be able to have. Okay, so now I've made some entries for Jane Doe. If I go to my other John Doe here, I can see that he doesn't have any jobs. So let's let him do some dishwashing from 10 to 16. Let's let him do some other stuff on other days as well. Service, let's say from 09 to whatever, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we've got some records. Let's look back at our original one that we had here. So of course the annoying thing about here was that you would have for every employee only one job for the whole week. In this case there's one job for the specific day. So that's, I think, already a bit better. Another thing that we can notice here is that sometimes there are 2 hours for an employee in a day. So this guy is working like in the afternoon and also in the evening. Now you can do this 2 different ways. You could say, well, we'll just add a second start time and end time, but that's kind of a repetition, so that would not really be a good idea. In FileMaker you want to always reduce everything to its smallest unit, and therefore the best way to solve this when a person has to work 2, like shall I say, time slots in a day, is just to add another record. Let's say on the same date as we have here. So he's doing service from till 6. Let's let him do dishwashing from 7 to 10. Okay, and if you do that, then your system is extremely flexible. You can add as many different time slots per person per day as you want, and it's all still contained in like kind of like a neat little package. So I think that this is the best, most flexible way of doing this. Now, one thing that's kind of annoying here is that I'm only looking at the work that Jane Doe is going to be doing in a specific week. I might want to be able to see all of this from a different context, like from a week or a day point of view, where you're doing maybe the planning for a whole day. You want to be able to put multiple different people on that one day and then give them like starting and end times and give them a certain job that they need to do, kind of like how this thing is laid out. So for here you can see all the employees, of course, for the whole week. So that's basically the context. If we go and look at the relationships here, we can see that we've got a layout based on employees, and that's always going to just show me one employee. So what if I want to show 1 week, and then all the employees working during that 1 week. I will need to have something similar as this. So I'm going to need to create a table that allows me to select a certain week and then allows me to see the records for that week. So I'll just make a new table, and what I'm going to call this one is I'm going to call this one Selector, because it allows me to select a week. Very simple. It's not more difficult than that. It needs a few fields, like I need to be able to select a week. Now, in some companies, people always work with week numbers, and they're always talking about week numbers. In other companies, they don't. A week is maybe something a bit tricky and difficult. So what you could do, instead of selecting a week, you can just select a date within that week as your selected or as a way to select a certain week. So I'm going to use a date field, and that could be like your start date, or call it whichever you want, and that then determines the week. So we can have a C week, which will be a number, and that can be calculated from that date. So we'll do an calculated value, and we'll do that week of year fiscal again, where we can have the date be the one that determines that week number, and I'll start my week on Monday. So that starts on day number 2. I'm going to uncheck this one so that when I change the date, my week calculation updates. Great. And if I make a layout for that, and I can actually start from this layout, because it's something similar that I'm going to be doing. I can go to File, Manage, Layouts, and I can just simply duplicate my layout of employees. Actually, I like to usually make let's make this a bit smaller. I like to organize my stuff a little bit in folders, so that I have a folder for tables and a folder for layouts. Because now I'm starting to get a couple of tables and a couple of layouts. Let's put these guys in the tables, and my selector as well. That's one that I just made. And let's put my layout of employees in my layouts folder, and now I can just simply duplicate my layout of my employees, and I'm gonna call this layout schedule, and this is gonna show records from my selector table that I had just made. Okay, cool. So now I can go to my layout of schedule, and it looks exactly the same as my employees layout, but it's not really showing data right now, obviously, because it is showing these fields from the employee table, but there's no relationship. I now have to update this stuff, so I can just simply go into this field, double click, and I can say that from my selector table I want my start date. Oops. And I can just enter a label here, and this one will be my from my selector table, my week calculation, and this will be my week number. That's just going to be a simple number, so this can be smaller. This date field could be like 120 or something, and I want to make this a drop-down calendar that includes an icon to show and hide the calendar. Okay, let's have a look at what this does. If I select the start date, oops, no records are present, so I have to make a new record first so that I have at least one record to work in. Then I have to select, I could select like a Monday. And if I select this Monday, it's basically telling me that this is in week number 18. So that's kind of simple. I don't need these details because those details were for like an employee. So I can just get rid of this details tab. And then I'm just left with the scheduling tab. Okay, cool. So now what I need to do is I need to determine what I want to be looking at. Do I want to be looking at my scheduling for a whole week or for a whole day? And if I'm thinking ahead, I'm thinking that probably at some point I'm going to want to have both options, where I am either just looking at one day or just looking at the overview for the entire week. So let's start just by making this just a week view. And then later on, I'm probably going to be duplicating this layout when it's finished in order to make like a day view. So now we have to create a relationship between this selector and then all the data we're going to be showing. So what we need to do is we need to take this one and we need to duplicate it. We can either do that by clicking these two green pluses, and that will create a new table occurrence of the dates, or I can just alt drag it and make a copy that way. It's very important to notice that what we're doing here is we're not creating a new table. This is still going to be showing me data. If you hover over this corner here, you can see that it says the source table is still dates, and with this one as well. So it's going to show me the data from the table of dates, but it's just going to be able to, I can now relate this one in a different way to this one, and so I will be seeing different kinds of data if I'm on the selector layout. Now what do I want to see? In my selector I've selected a date, which gives me a week number, and I want to see all the data for that week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the C week, and I'm going to connect this one with the week number, because obviously that's going to give me the same kind of value, and so these two values will be the same if I have a week that is selected here. I want to see all the data in this dates table that has the same week number as the week number I have here. So I'm going to give this a more decent name, and I'm going to give this the name dates Selector. Okay, so that I know which one this is related to. Okay, so now I have to change this one on my selector layout. I have this one is showing me information from dates. Of course, dates is not related to my selector, but dates selector is. And then I can just double click all of these, because these are going to be coming from the wrong table, and I'll just have to get them from the dates selector table. So I just have to update all of these. Very simple. And now if I go back into browse mode, I'm getting all of this information all within this week. Now I'm not seeing the names here, and that's because in my other layout I didn't need to show the names, but in this layout I do. So let's select a bunch of fields, and let's move these over a little bit, and let's add a field here for the employee. So let's get from date selector the employee ID of K, and let's make that a drop-down list, or maybe a pop-up menu, not for the jobs but for the employees. Let's use values from a field, from employees. Let's get the primary key. That's the information I actually have to store in this field, but that's useless to me, so I do want to also see the full name of this person. So I'm going to show the values only from second field. I don't need to see that primary key, so let's hit OK, OK, OK 3 times, and then I should be good to go. This one needs to be employee, this label. Okay, good. Let's maybe line up these fields back again. Okay, let's go into browse mode, and now we can see that we have got our Jane Doe and our John Doe all in here. I think these fields aren't really properly sorted yet, so let's double click in here and let's do the sorting. Now it's sorting by dates, which is not really what I want. I want it sorted by the date field from the dates selector table. Okay, let's hit OK. Okay, and now my fields are all kind of sorted by the date here. So this also allows me, not yet because I can't create a new record here, but if I go to my settings of my relationship in File Manage Database, I can double click this relationship between the selector and the date selector, and I can allow the creation of records in this table via this relationship. If I hit OK, then this gives me the ability to add data. So let's have a look. Who do we have here? For instance, Jane Doe is working on the 1-5. John Doe is not yet, so let's do 1-5. And let's say that maybe John Doe, or maybe even Jill, is going to be working here as well. So we're going to be doing dishwashing from, let's say, 07 to 13. Okay, cool. This allows me to add people, and it shows me all the people that are working through a whole week. If you have a lot of people working in any given day, you might want to set this thing up so that it shows you only the staff for one particular day and not the whole week. I do think that a week view is probably easier to see in a list view, but we're going to get to that later. Let's go into edit layout and let's make this one week, and then I'll do insert merge field, and I'll do C week number. Actually, I have to get this from my selector, C week. Okay, week 18 is what this is showing me. Now, you know what, maybe it's better if we make this a date view. You know what, let's just set up a second one. Let's just make a new layout. Let's go to File, Manage, Layouts. Let's call this one Lay Schedule Week. Okay, and then let's duplicate it and let's call this one Lay Schedule Day. Okay, cool. So now I have a week view, and let's make a day view as well. So let's see, let's make this one date. And let's do insert field, and let's use that start date. Actually, I already have that one here, so that's fine. And then the week number, well, it doesn't really matter, but I can just leave it on there. And now what I need to do is actually go into my file manager relationships, and then this one, date selector, let's call this one date selector week. And I can just copy it, alt drag it over here, and make this one dates selector day. And then what I need to do is very simple. I have my start date, and I just relate this one to the date here. So that means I'm only going to be seeing records in this table occurrence that are of the same date. Cool. So on my day schedule, let's change this one from date selector week to date selector day, and then I have to update all these fields to come from the correct table occurrence. But this kind of gives you an idea of how these table occurrences work. Did I actually change that previous one correctly here? Yeah, day, job, yeah, okay. It shows that you can make different table occurrences, and you can then relate them in a different way, and that always kind of creates a different kind of context. So here I'm seeing only the records for the people that are working that specific day. So I have Jane and John Doe that are working. Jane Doe is doing different time slots here, so maybe an interesting one to do is to not only sort, let's do clear all, let's not only sort by date, but also to sort by employee ID. And that way, kind of Jane Doe is going to stay together even if she has multiple time slots. They all kind of stay together. Now I want to be able to add someone here on this day, and I can't do that because I do not have the ability to create kind of new records. So maybe if we take, maybe we should just make this one a bit smaller, this one a bit smaller. Oops. And then what we can do is we can put them below each other. Makes the lines a bit more visible, and I can just allow the creation of records in this table, in this day table occurrence. So now I could say on the same day, actually I should remove this field from here because this is going to be filled in automatically. Anyway, you know what? I'll just leave it there for a second and I'll show you. If you select Jill Hickleberry here, the date is going to be filled in automatically because obviously it needs to be related to this date, and so the value here needs to be the same. And therefore on this layout it's probably best if I remove this date so that things don't get confused, and then I can take all of these values and move them all up a bit like so. And then it becomes just a little easier, and then I don't have to worry about this date that I don't have to fill in anyway. So let's say that Jill is going to be working as well that day from 10 to 20. Okay, and this kind of perspective, this layout, gives you the ability to simply look at it one specific day and to just plan all the different people and all the different things that they need to do. This gives you a more a certain kind of a different perspective than if you would be looking at this whole thing from your employee type side of things. For the employee, this could be very handy because they might only want to know which jobs they need to be doing. So they only want to see their own overview. But for anyone who's doing the scheduling, you might want to just be able to look at a day and or at a specific date, and then just see your planning that way. Now, a neat little trick that you can do is this is kind of going to be annoying. If you want to change your day, you have to go in here and then remember which day you already had and then choose another day. A trick that you can use is you can just insert picture. Let's see if I have any nice arrows somewhere. Probably do have a bunch of nice arrows. Arrow left, week. Why is it called week? Oh, that's good. That's a nice one. And then let's insert the arrow right as well. I don't know why these are called week. Probably use them for. Okay, so let's see. Let's say we put the start date. Sometimes this kind of layout stuff requires you to mess around a bit, try stuff out. Okay, cool. If I do something like this. And then, yeah, this could go. Yeah, this doesn't look very good. I would have to make it something like this. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Now what we can do is just simply, if you click this one, the date will go -1, and if you click this one, the date will go plus, like +1. I always like to get these things kind of neat and organized, but sometimes that's just not important. Okay, so let's make a script. I don't have any scripts yet, so that's good. We'll be learning that as well. Date +1. No, let's do date plus minus. I'll teach you guys a little trick. I can do both different buttons with one script. So the date -1 or the date +1 can be done in the same script. First, let's do this simple script. Let's do set fields, and then let's specify the target. That's going to be my start date, and I'm going to result this in start date. What did I have? +1. Okay, and then just for fun, I will do a commit records request. And commit records request, basically what that does is it allows you to store the value that you just saved. So it basically, when you are in a field and you're typing stuff in, like here, that value is only saved the moment that you either click outside of the field or that you tab. And that commit step is basically the same as hitting the tab button. It's just gonna like store your data in that field at that moment. Okay, so I've got my script. I can attach this script to my plus button. Let's do button setup. Let's do perform script, and let's do date plus minus. And I always like to change my cursor to a hand when I hover over this button. And now if I click this button, so I'm on 1.5. There, I'm on 2.5. That's great. But now the thing is, I also want to be able to do minus, and I was going to do that with the same script. And a trick to do that is a trick you can find in here is when you go to button setup, you can have a date, you can specify a certain script that you're running, but you could also specify an optional script parameter, and that's an extra little bit of information that you can give to your script so that you can know. In this case, for instance, which button was pushed. So I'm gonna hit I'm gonna write plus, if I can type here, and that's gonna be my script parameter. I do have to put this in parentheses. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna run my script date plus minus with the additional information of plus. So I hit the plus button. That's what that means in this case. And now in my script, I can specify an if statement. If my get script parameter, if that equals plus, I have to put this in quotations again, then I'm going to want to do these two steps. So I'm going to put these two steps inside of my if statement. Now what I can do is I can copy this whole thing, and I'm going to paste it back, and I'm going to say if my script parameter is minus, then I want to do the exact same thing, except instead of +1, I'm going to do -1. See, and that way, otherwise you would have to make two different scripts. Now you can just contain all of that stuff in one script. That's kind of cool. Now I just do have to set this button up a bit. So I'm going to have to go to button setup. I'm going to say perform for me a script, date plus minus, and my optional script parameter is minus. And I want to have this my cursor to change to a hand when I hover over this button. And this way I can now skip back some more, and I can very easily move through my different dates and see the scheduling for each date. So that's kind of cool. And you could do the same thing with your weeks as well. But again, as I said, my week view, I would do that in a list view. Okay, so this is kind of cool. I can just do my planning. John Doe, Jane Doe, Jill. Okay, cool. So another thing I was thinking of was you might want to do a dwindling value list so that you can't accidentally select the same person twice. Because let's say that you're doing a party or whatever and you need a certain amount of people. If you accidentally put the same person in there twice, then you might think that you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4 people showing up on that day. Actually, you're just going to have 3 people showing up because Jane Doe is in there twice. And so you will have one person too few on your event, which could be a kind of an annoying disaster. So in order to prevent this from happening, you could make a dwindling value list so that when you click this drop down, it only shows the people that do not yet show up in this list. Now you could make that. You do have to keep in mind in this situation, I do have these certain instances where people are doing 2 time slots a day. So you cannot, you'll have to choose one of those things. So for instance, in this one, from 10 to 5, Jane Doe is doing dishwashing. Let's say that she needs to do some service as well from, let's say 17. Let's say 17, she stops with her dishwashing and she then does service until 8. Now if you want to be able to do this stuff, you cannot make a dwindling value list, because then you cannot select the same person twice. But if you're not going to do any of this stuff, you could make a dwindling value list. Now I'll just show you how to make a dwindling value list so that you would know how that works. It's quite complicated, so I don't even know if I should. Okay, well, let's just do it anyway, just for fun. Okay, so the idea of a dwindling value list is that you kind of create a list of people that are in here. For instance, in this case, you have John Doe and Jane Doe, and so that if you click on this drop down, you will only see Jill Hickleberry. Now, the way to make a dwindling value list is basically to list the 2 people that are in here in a field in this table. The table that we're working with is Selector. So what we're going to do is, in my Selector field table, we're going to create a new field that kind of lists employees that have already been used. List employees that have been scheduled. That makes it a very long name. List employees used. Well, something like that. It doesn't really matter. Let's leave this as a text field. Okay, so this is going to list the employees that have been used. Let's save the changes. Okay, and we can put that list on here. From my Selector table, the list employees that have been used. Okay, cool. I'm going to set this up and make it nice and big because it's going to show multiple values, ideally. So what this needs to do is, as soon as I select an employee here, it needs to add both, actually it needs to list all of the employees that are here. So the action on which this happens is the selecting of an employee. So I can use a script trigger on this field to run a script. I do have to make my script first, so let's go there. Let's do list used employees for dwindling value list. Okay, that's way too long. Let's not do that. List used employees. Okay, if I want to type in any comments, I can just put a hashtag here and then explain what this does. List employees that have already been scheduled this day. Okay, so this only works, of course, in the context of a day, because in a week you'll be able to schedule that employee multiple times, and so we'll just keep it simple and keep this in the day kind of context. Okay, so what I need to do is very simple. I just need to set a field. The field is the list of the employees, and there I just have to put a list of the employees that have been used. So if I go and look at this layout, then my list of employees is going to be in my dates selector day. So it's very important always that you get this right, especially if you start using multiple table occurrences. It can get a little complicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list. And what am I going to list? From my dates selector day, I'm going to list all my, whoops, not my primary key. That's wrong. I'm going to list all of my employees. Okay, let's try that out. And I'll just do a commit record just in case. And then I'm going to save. Okay, I need to now let this script be performed in at some point, and that is when I select something here. So I'm going to go into my script triggers here and see what my options are. So I have a couple of events during which I could have this script run. Now ideally I want to be able to select an employee, and once I've selected an employee, then this script needs to be performed. So not on object enter, not on object keystroke, on object modify could be the case because this is just a drop down, so I just select something, but I'll just use it on object save. Why not? Sounds like it's good to me. I'm going to list the used employees, so okay, exit the layout, and then let's see if I select chain do, what happens then. I get this listing of two, this field is not so big, so let's see if I can make it a bit bigger so I can a little bit more clearly see what's going on. There. So I've listed two of my IDs, and those are the two IDs that I have for these two employees. So now I have to make it so that this dropdown is restricted and only showing me the employees that are not already in this list, and that's important, that are not in this list. Okay, how can I do that? It's very simple. If I go into my file manage database relationships, I've got, and this screen is looking a bit small, so I've got my selector with my list of employees that I have used, and now I just need to have the employees that are not in this list. My employees are here, and I'll just give this field, this table a color, and then when I alt drag it or use these two little plus signs, I can make a new table occurrence, again to make a new kind of context, and I can say employees not selected, or not used. I actually used before. Okay, so now I need to relate these are actually the IDs of the employees, so I can relate this to the primary key, and now I can say instead of is equal, I need to have the ones that are not equal, because I have a list of employees that are used and I want to get the employees that have not yet been used. Okay, let's, oops, I should have said change here, so I'm going to delete this one. So I am left with the list employees that are used, which is not equal to primary key. Okay, good. This is looking good so far. Let's put this in the bottom here. Good. Okay, let's see if this works. It's not going to work yet because I haven't set this drop down up yet to be properly showing me the correct data. So I'm gonna have to make a new pop-up menu here. I've got my employees, but that's just showing all of my employees. Now I need to make a new one for employees not used, and I will need to use values from a field, and I'm gonna use this, it's gonna be the same primary key and and the full name, but from employees not used. And instead of including all the values, I'm going to include only related values, and that's the key here. This setting is what makes the dwindling value list work. I'm going to include only related values starting from the selector. I'm going to show values only from second field, so that's good. And let's give this a try. Let's see if this actually works or not, because I haven't done this in a while. Okay, this drop-down only shows me Jill Hickleberry, so that's really kind of good. I don't know why all of a sudden now these things start showing up. Oh no, wait, maybe I have to... I hate using pop-up thingies. Yeah, of course, it's not going to be able to see. Oh god, I hate using. Let's cancel. I do not like using pop-up menus because they never work the way I want them to work. Okay, let's just use then the employee ID FK, and then let's use my age-old trick that I always use, that I think is annoying that you have to use it in FileMaker. But anyway, I'm just going to alt drag this employee ID FK. I'm going to say show me from employees. Wait, hold on. Oh yeah, god. Okay, let's cancel. Let's go and look here. Okay, my selector is in no way, shape, or form anywhere related to my employees. Good, so I'll just make a new relationship here. Let's alt drag my employees to my date selected day, and let's do employees dates. Oops, no spaces. Selector day. Yeah, it gets a bit complicated when you start using multiple, like multiple table occurrences and so forth. Date selected day. I've got my employee ID FK in there somewhere. Let's see if this allows me to set up my pop-up. Let's try it again with the pop-up menu. Specify field. Let's see if I can do this one here. Okay, let's hope see if that works. Nope, doesn't work. And that's kind of annoying. Okay, let's go back to just making this a drop-down list. That makes it easier. Okay, let's alt drag this over here. Let's get my employees from my date selected day, and let's get their full name. I don't need a label for this. And then I have to kind of make this one available in find mode but not in browse mode, and this can be a edit box. Well, this one is a drop-down list that's available in browse mode but not in find mode. And god, why does this have to be so complicated? Okay, let's line them up on top of each other. And actually this top one doesn't need the script trigger, so let's get that to come off. And then the bottom one does. Okay, good. Let's put them on top of each other. Let's see if this has worked better or not. Then it does. This is like a FileMaker bug. You need to move it, nudge it 1 pixel to the side, and then kind of nudge it 1 pixel back. Oh, FileMaker is so much fun. Okay, good. Now, is this one still set up properly to be a drop-down list of the employees not used? Let's make this one employees not used, and then see full name. Okay, god, so why does this have to be so complicated? Okay, good. We're getting there. Let's put these back on top of each other. Okay, so using a pop-up menu, as I have experienced a lot of times, not a good idea. But now, what I do have is the ability to select Jill Hickleberry, which is great. And when I select her, she also shows up in this list of used employees. And that way, if I put her in here, 12 to 17, okay, doesn't matter. Now if I would like to select another person, I can't because I only have 3 people and they're all scheduled, so I've run out. Okay, is this therefore finished? No, it's not, because if we go to a second date, a tricky thing that happens is all these values in here, they all stay the same, as if all 3 people are selected, but in this day, nobody has been used yet. So if I want to select an employee, I can't, because this field is telling me that all employees are selected. And the reason that this is going wrong is because I'm changing my date, but I'm not updating this field. So I need to update my script here, so that when I do my date plus minus thing, I also need to kind of run this this script as well. And I can simply do perform script. I can use from the list the script list use employee. So basically then I'm going to be, as soon as I change the date, I'm going to be running the script again. So let's try this out. Let's go to the next date. My script is performed again. No employees are listed here. So all of these kind of used employees are kind of cleared up again, and that's kind of correct. Now if I would like to try to select an employee, again this is not working, and the reason that it is not working now is because if I go into my relationships, what this basically tells me is that I want to be able, this relationship says I want to see all the employees that are not used, and the not used is defined by I want to see all the employees that have that are not the same as the ones that are in that list. So as soon as you have an ID in that list, you want to see all the employees that do not have that ID. But when there is no value in that field, this is not really going to evaluate. You cannot have something that is not equal to empty, to nothing. So that is why this is not working. If I were to put a value in there, let's say for instance the number 0, then I can see all my employees. The problem being that this field should never ever be empty. Now one way to solve that is to go to File, Manage Database, and under Fields I can have this one, Lists Employees Used. I can have this one have an auto enter value like a 0. 0 always works well. I can have that in there. But I can also just amend this script so that I'm always going to have in my field a list of dates, but also I want to have a 0 in there, 0 and a return, and then my list. So if, what do I need? And return and this list. So that I will always have at least one value in that field. So that if I change my date, there, even if this is completely empty, it's still always going to have a value in there. And now let's select someone. Okay, great. I've selected Jane Doe. So my Jane Doe's ID has shown up here, but that 0 also remains in here, so that if I were to remove this Jane Doe, I would still always have at least one value in here. This field can never be empty. Let's see if this now shows me my other 2 people, and that seems like it's working. So John and Jill, I can select either one of those. Now this dwindling list again, dwindling value list again, only if you're never going to put the same person twice in one day, which in some cases you might want to do. So I will just leave this dwindling list in. It's very easy to change it. Just take your bottom field, that is your drop down list, and just change your employees not used to employees, and then you will just have all your employees and not only your dwindling value list employees. Okay, so that's just as a little side note for the ability to make a dwindling value list, an extra thing learned on this lesson. Okay, one more thing left to do. I have this week view, but I don't like this week view like this. I like the day view, that one's kind of cool, but a week view shouldn't be seen, I think, in a portal. I think a list view would be better for that. So let's go ahead and let's edit this layout so that we can make a new layout. And let's go ahead and show everything from dates, and let's call this one list schedule, because I think that's going to be kind of an important layout that you might want to use a lot. I'll just make a list here. Or you can also do form view. I'll just do a list schedule. It's going to show from dates. Okay, kind of good. And the good thing about choosing a list is that it already makes this like very narrow kind of thing, which is kind of cool. Okay, what do I need in here? Let's get my side panel out. I want to have my employee date, employee, job, start and end time, the total amount of hours. I haven't really used these yet, so I'll have to incorporate these in a bit as well. Let's use the S hours. Let's just get it in there. And the week number, I don't really need this one here. Okay, so let's set this up as a list, and let's get the labels up top. Only one annoying thing is, I don't know if this is a good idea. If I put these labels, yeah, these labels are not, are they gonna be good? Okay, maybe they are, I don't know. Because the thing is, if you take a text, your text tool, and you start typing here, it'll give you a different color and styling as if you take it and you put it in the top here. See, it makes it different, but I think these labels did actually show up right for that top header part. So okay, let's get rid of my side panel again so that you guys can see what's going on. Let's take all of these fields and let's make sure that they're up high enough. Okay, my employee doesn't need to be that wide. My employee needs to be a drop down. And again, you'll have to choose which one you want to use, but because I'm going to be seeing all the days of the week here, I might want to put an employee multiple times in a week, obviously, so I'm going to just want to show the drop down of employees. That shows me all my employees. This is again my dates, so I'm going to want to show my employee's full name. And again, I have to do my little setup here where this one is available in browse mode but not in find mode, and this is a drop down, but the one with the name is a edit box that's available in find mode but not in browse mode. It's a quirk in FileMaker. You normally would be able to use a pop-up for this, but I just don't like working with pop-ups because, as we saw before, they just don't always do what I want them to do. Let's make this date field a drop-down calendar and let it include an icon to show and hide the calendar. I could give this like a 120 with, which is good for date. Okay, so on any specific day, an employee is gonna be given a job. Actually, let's put, should we put the date first? I think we should. Let's put the employee second. Let's put the date first. And then what is this one? Oh, that's the employee one that didn't go along. Okay, that needs to be in the same place. Oof, wow, I can't type. Employee. Okay, so then what we could do is we could select a date, select an employee, give this employee a certain job. This job can be a drop down of jobs. Great. And then we have start time, end time, and hours. I feel like we've been here before. Let's make this one a 60. 60, and this one too. And again, let's set these all up to be displayed as time. So let's go to data, let's go to time, and let's do hours and minutes. And then we can set all of these guys up to be closer to each other. Start time, end time. Actually, my text on the top is a bit high, so maybe I could make these fields a bit wider. A width of, let's say, 80. Yeah, that might be better. Okay, that's just, this is actually just nitpicking, it's not that important. Okay, let's make this one 82. And maybe to make them all neat, let's make them all centered. Okay, let's try this out and see what we have. Ooh, we have a mess. Okay, let's go into my edit layout, and what I always like to do is uncheck this delineate fields on current record only, because I think it looks like a mess, and this gives you what that does is now these fields have a background of white, otherwise only the selected record has fields that have a background of white and the rest is transparent, which I don't really want. Okay, let's edit my layout. I got another hidden field here. We'll deal with that one later. Okay, so this is my list view, and this is going to show me all the people that are going to be working, and ideally we're going to put this per week. Now this looks like a total mess right now, so this is not good. This one can be a bit smaller. Okay, we're gonna have to group this a little bit and sort and organize this a little bit, because right now it's kind of a mess. So in order to do that, what we can do is we can group this by the week and even group this by the day. And because this is a list view, we can add under layouts, we can go in part setup, and we can create a sub-summary when sorted by. Now a sub-summary allows us to kind of group records together. I'm going to want to group them by week, so I'm going to do a sub-summary by week number. And very important to remember here is that this is a sub-summary when sorted by. Those three words are very important. So I'm going to print this one above, and what this does is it gives me a new part on my layout. So you have a header and a body and a footer, and this creates a new sub-summary part. A cool thing is I can create another sub-summary part when sorted by, and I'm going to set this one by date, because I'll have multiple people working on the same date, and so therefore I want them grouped as well. I'm going to print this above, and I'm going to say done. Now I'm going to take my text tool, and I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to say week, and then I'm going to insert a merge field to have the week number in here. So from my dates, I can get C week number, boom. And because this is kind of grouped by this, I'm going to want to have this one a bit bigger. Let's make it 14. Great. And then I can make this a bit smaller. Okay. And to make this sub-summary part stand out a bit, I'll give it a fill color. Let's give it a purplish. And then I will copy this text over down here. And I'm going to give it a date. So I'm going to do insert merge field, and let's say date. Great. That way I actually don't really need this here, but I'll just leave it in there just so that I can easily create new records in there as well. In order to kind of show this a bit better, I'm going to make this a little bit of a yellowish fill color so that these things kind of stand out a bit. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Actually, I can make this one a bit more narrow if I wanted to. Okay, let's exit my layout. And what do I see? I see absolutely nothing. My purple is gone, my yellow is gone. What on earth is going on? Now, if we remember, this sub-summary part is going to group stuff, but it's only going to group when sorted by, and those three words were very important, I told you before. So we do have to sort these records accordingly, otherwise these sub-summary parts are not going to show up. So I have to go to sort right here. I had sorted these by week and then by date. And those are the two kind of grouping levels that I want. So if we sort these, then all of a sudden my sub-summary parts do show up, and this thing all of a sudden becomes a lot more organized. So in week 18 on the first date, so this is like the Monday, I've got these people working and so forth. So now this is all kind of broken down and grouped a little bit better. So this is a little bit easier to make sense of it all. Okay, one thing I had in my original thing here is I've got, for instance, John, and he's working all these hours. So John has a total amount of hours that he's going to be doing every week. Now, I also had like a summary of the hours, but what it's doing right now is basically showing the total amount of hours for everyone. And that is not that ideal, it's not so handy, but that summary field can give you a different result depending on the context. So what I could do is for every employee and for every week, I could get the total that way. So I'm going to go to File, Manage, Database. I'm going to go to my relationship stuff here. So basically what I'm doing is I'm showing my records based on this one. And based on this one, I also want to get the total per week. So what I'll do is I'll give this a color first to begin with. And then I'm going to copy this one, and that if you give all your boxes like colors, then it's a bit easier to see where like a certain box appears again. So I'm going to say dates per week total. I'll do it like that. And so what I want is for every employee, so I'll relate this one, and for every week, see week number, I am going to want to have that total. So now when I'm on dates, I'm on a certain record, this table occurrence is going to give me all the dates for that employee for that week, and that's going to be found in here. So if I take the total, that S total, that's in here, if I take that from this table occurrence, it's going to show me the total of hours worked for that person in that week. So if I double click this one and I say I want this one not from the dates table occurrence, but from dates week total, then this should give me a different kind of result. So I can see that Jane Doe in this week 18, she's doing 30 hours. And here Jane Doe appears again, and you see again her total of 30 hours. And Jill has 23 hours, and everywhere where Jill appears, it's the same total. It's her total per week. So let's do week total. And this one is just simply hours. You have start time and end time. Oops. There, so this is starting to look a little bit closer to what we had to begin with, but more of a FileMaker type version of this. Now, what you could do is you could make a printable version of this, so you can kind of print out the whole week and the whole scheduling for the whole week on one page. Now, we can take this a little bit further, because now we made only how shall I say, the records for one specific week. What if we start adding a second week? Let's say the 6th. We'll do some dishwashing, 12 to 19, and the 7th we'll do some preparation from 14 to 18 or something. And if we start making some records like this for multiple people here, 10 to 15. Okay, if we go back to our list schedule, we will now see that a second week also starts to show up. This is going to get a bit messy eventually, so we're going to want to refine to be able to decide which week we want to look at, and maybe even we want to see only the listing for one specific employee. So let's go and add some more stuff here in my dates. Let's add some search fields. When I make search fields, I like to make them global, so I call this a G, and then I like to make this find, and I'll say employee, which will be a text, G find date. Let's make that a date field, and let's make this one a week number, which could be a number. And this week number could have an auto enter calculated value, which is going to be again that week year fiscal of this case that global find date with the starting date of 2. So that way I can just select the date. I'm going to uncheck this one so that if I change the date, my week number updates, and we'll be able to just select the date, and that date will determine which week number we're in, and then we can find all the records for that week, because now we're kind of working in a week context. Okay, cool. So what I need for this is maybe I'll need to make this header a bit larger so that I have a bit more room. Cool. And now let's start adding these kind of find fields. Let's do from dates. I want this G find employee. There we go. We're going to want this to be a drop down, but if I want to show the employee name, I'm going to have an employee table that's related to this one. So I'm going to have to do alt drag this one, employees G find, and I'll have to take this G find employee name, and I'll have to relate this to the primary key here, because I'm going to use this field to store a primary ID, but I'll have to also be able to see that person's name, because the IDs don't really mean anything to me. So this will be another drop down list, and let's do G find. Actually, I probably don't even need that one. I could probably just use the employees. I'll just have to alt drag this one over here in order to get from my employees G find the C full name. I'll have to do that. Let's try this out. This is a drop-down list available in browse mode but not in find mode, and this needs to be an edit box available in find but not in browse mode. Then if we put them on top of each other, a lot of work for nothing. let's select Jill. Okay, cool. So now we need to also be able to search on a date. Let's get from dates the G find date. This could be about like, let's say 120 is what I usually use for a date. Let's make it a drop down calendar. There we go. Let's put in a label. And now let's alt drag this one over here. Week, and this doesn't have to be a drop down calendar, this could be a simple edit box, and we will get the gfind week number. Now the cool thing about this being an auto enter calculation is that we can select the date and that will put a week number in here, but if we don't bother with the date, we can also just simply enter a week number in here. Okay, and then we can have a find button there. It's kind of big. Let's make it, let's say 75. Yep, sounds good. And then I always like to give them nice little colors. Cool. Okay, so now what we need to do is make a script to find in week list. So what we need to do is we'll need to enter find mode. Actually, enter find mode. The pause can be turned off, and then I'm gonna need a bunch of if statements, because either I'm gonna have an employee selected or not. It could be that I don't. If let's see, not is empty, and I can click this FX button to make this a bit simpler for me. If not is empty, my date gfind employee. If that field is not empty, then I'm gonna want to set the field, and I'm gonna want to set my employee IDFK with the value of whichever is in the gfind employee. There we go. So this is what I have to do for all of these fields, because either there is a value in there or there is not. And now I'll just go back in here. If not is empty gfind date. Then actually here I have to kind of determine what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to want to keep this not on a date type thing, but on a week type thing. So I'll just skip this date field. I'll just use this date field to select the week. If not is empty gfind week number. Then let's set the field of week number with the value of whatever is in this gfind thingy there. Let's do set error capture on, just so that if there is an error we don't get like an error message from FileMaker, because I don't want that. And then let's do perform find, and then I will like to do a sort. Now the cool thing with the sort is that if you already have a sort order specified and you're on this layout, then FileMaker already suggests whether if that's the one you want to use, and it is. So I'll just hit save. And then let's go on this find button. Let's do perform script find in week list. And actually, let's double click this again because I want this cursor to be a hand as well. So now what I could do is I could select the person, or I could just empty this field and I can just use the date selector to select a week. Now I've got week 18 and week 19 visible, but if I hit find, what do I get then? I actually get everything here. That's kind of weird. Let's check out my script. If not is empty gfind week number, set field dates, see week number. Oh yeah, that's not right. Dates gfind week number. Okay, let's hope that that works better now. Oh no, my week. Let's use my script debugger and my data viewer to see what's happening here. Let's hit find. If not is empty date g find employee, then it's going to skip that because that is actually empty. If not is empty g week number, there was a value in there. Oh yeah, okay, I know what's going on. I'm going to stop this for a second. Let's cancel this find. I did call these fields G as for global, but I didn't actually set them to global storage. So it's kind of important if you're going to do a find like this that you set these fields to global storage, because then if you don't, the value is only going to be available in one record. But if you set them to global storage, no matter which record you are on, any value you have in here is going to be available everywhere. And it's because I wasn't oops, let's use a value here. Because I hadn't set them to global storage, my find mode can't find the data that's in there. So in order to give you a look at what that looks like, if you go to dates and you go, oops, I don't want this layout, I want here in this view. If I add my global fields here, you can see that even though I've entered that 18 and that date in one field, because they're set to global storage, they are available on every record. So you have one value for all records, and no matter which record you want, you can see the value that is there. It might not make that much sense now that I'm hearing myself explain it, but if you're doing something in find mode, you need to have these values available to you no matter which record that you are on, and so otherwise that's not gonna work very well. So now I did my search on week 18, and so I'm only seeing everything for week 18. If I select another week here, this becomes week 19, and if I perform my find, then I'm seeing my whole scheduling for the week, the next week. I could also add an employee to this, and then I'm only seeing Jane Doe records for week 19. If I go back a week, then I'm seeing all of Jane Doe, and this is kind of handy to make a schedule for one specific person, so that they get like their own personalized schedule for the whole week, and they don't really have to bother looking through the lines to find their own name. They can just get their own little personalized schedule. Okay, this was a very long video, but I think we've gotten somewhere kind of nice. I can also just clear this one out and then just again show the whole planning for the whole week. Now we can make a printable version of this, and we could just very simply go to File, Manage Layouts. We could duplicate this one and call this one Print Schedule. Okay, actually, let's see. Yep, this is only in list view, fine. And then if we go there, we can just kind of set it up for printing. And the way we set it up for printing is we can go to View and then use Page Breaks. And then I can kind of see, if I go to Preview mode, I can do Page Setup and set up my page the way it's going to be. And then my Page Breaks will kind of show what my limits are. Now, I don't need any of this stuff for my printing, but also I don't need any of the colors or the formatting, so I'm going to go to Layout, Change Theme, and I'm going to use a minimalist theme, the basic minimalist one. Okay, that makes everything a lot simpler. I can just create a smaller header, so let's make this a bit smaller, and then these texts, they're 14 points. I could make them a lot smaller as well. I could make these like 12, and I can make all of this stuff and all of this stuff. I can make it like 10 points, and that just makes everything a whole lot tinier. So then I can take these dates, also the name, and this one needs to stay at the same size, so I can just do this, that job, and then all these times here need to be made smaller. Yeah, and now I have to line all these back up again. I have to try to squeeze all of this in here. There, okay, that just barely fits, but let's have a look. Control U. It's not that bad, so we can take the sub-summary part and maybe give it a bit of a fill, a darker gray, and let's take this date and give it a lighter gray fill. Okay, and it's starting to become a little bit apparent now that actually this one doesn't seem to have the correct time set up here. Okay, so now if you want to print a whole week view, depending on how many days you have in your week, if your thing is open 7 days a week or like 5 days a week, and depending on the amount of employees you're going to have, it either will or will not fit on one page. Any kind of tweaking you can do to make all of this stuff a bit smaller. Oops, the date field is a bit large, so you can make that a bit. Any kind of tweaking you can do to get this to be all as teeny tiny as possible is good. Anything you can do to just limit all the amount of space, and like this as well, we can put the employee like closer here to the date, and just like this is then a whole bunch of tweaking to try to just get it all to be as teeny tiny as possible. And then you can just get all of these fields, oops, get them all selected, and then just like put them up as high as possible, and then you put these up as high as you can possibly get these up. There you go. And then, well, your print view eventually becomes kind of teeny tiny. Okay, so that when you have your print view, you can then just add a little button here. So let's do an insert picture. Should have a printer somewhere. Printer made of gold. That's even better. Wow. Golden printer. And then let's make this a little smaller. 48 by 48, for instance. Okay, and this now gives me a print button, and I can just make a script for that, which is very simple. Let's do a print list view. And then it's very simple. Let's do a freeze window first, because I'm going to move to another layout, then print it, and then come back. I don't want to see those changes happening on my screen, so I'll just do a freeze window, go to layout. The layout I'm going to go to is going to be the layout print schedule. Then I will do print setup with the dialog off, because I want to specify now that I have a standing page, and then I want to do a print with the dialog on so that the person can choose which printer, and then I want to do go to layout, original layout. Okay, I'm going to save this whole thing, button setup, perform script, print list view, and then change that to a cursor. Okay, so now you should be able to click this button and it'll print this list in that printable view that we made there before. So now it's all about just the tweaking and the handling. Now, a handy thing about this layout, because I've kept the date in here and because of this drop down is in here, I can just simply use this overview for the whole week to just simply start adding new records and so on. And this is now in 3.5, but I could make this in 1.5 as well. On any date, I can add a person for whichever task, 10 to 12, and then as soon as I kind of click out, this sort will update and it will add this person to any kind of day, and it will kind of remain sorted and kind of remain cool. You do have to pay attention, of course, because now I don't have that dwindling value list in here. So in here you could accidentally add the same person to a specific day kind of twice. So that's not really ideal. But I'm not gonna think about that any further. I think I've already spent enough time on this. We can print this, and oh, maybe one more additional note. Because we have now the ability to print this list as like a weekly overview, what we could also do very simply with a very simple script is kind of loop through. Let's say if we specify a certain week, week 18, what we can do is make a very simple script that looks at this week, looks at all the employees that are going to be working this week, and then basically makes this kind of schedule per employee like this, and just sends the employee a little PDF with only their schedule for the whole week. Because sometimes that's just handy for everyone to just have only their schedule and not all the other names. Now sometimes you might want to know which other people are on or which other people you're working with, but sometimes it might just be handy to just have your name. So what you could do is you can make a little script that basically gives people an overview, but then also a personal schedule. And the way you would do that is kind of simple. I'll just give you the large lines of it, because it has a couple of tricks in it. You could go to employees, and then what you could do is you could add another field in here from dates. You could add a week number. And then what you can do is, this is all for week 18. They're all going to be working in week 18. Let's add an employee. Let's add a new one. Joe Holmes. If we were to go in find mode and find for the week number of 18, we can then find all the employees that are working in week 18. Now this new guy that I just made is not showing up here because he is not working in week 18. And so if you do this kind of a find, then you can find all the people that are working in week 18. And now that you have this list of these 3 people that are working in week 18, you can then loop through. The script can do this automatically. You can just simply loop through their each and every single record, and for each person you can make their own personalized schedule and then email that PDF to them. I'm not going to go into detail in how you would go to do that, or should I? It's actually not that hard, so I'll do that really quickly. How would you do that? Okay, very simple. Let's do a loop personalized. Hey, if you don't want to know this, you can just simply stop the video. Loop personalized email schedule. Wow, what a name. Okay, so first of all, what you need to do is you need to determine the week, because you're going to want to do this for 1 week, I guess. So let's say if we just add that button here. Right, we just add a email thingy here. Insert picture. I always like to insert the pictures first before I do the hard work of making the scripts and stuff, because pictures are fun. 48 by 48. Okay, this gives us something to kind of look at. That's pretty. Okay, so let's say that this is and we add a tooltip. Mail personalized schedule. See, that works already. Okay, so if we were to do that, we're going to want to do that in a specific week. Okay, so what we can do as a first test in our script is to see if there is a week kind of like selected in here, and if not, we're going to not want to do this, because we don't really want to do this for like for like a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe, or maybe we'll just add in a little check. Let's do a little because I haven't really been commenting in my script, so let's do that. Check if a week number is selected in the top field. Okay, and then let's do a if is empty, and this is going to be in the dates, the gfind week number. If that is empty, I'm going to want to do a little beep. I'm going to want to do a show custom dialog, and I'm going to want to do a halt script. Okay, and my custom dialog is let's do no week selected, please select a week number on the top. And they don't get to cancel, they just get to say okay, and then my script halts and then it's done. Okay, so when I do get a selected week, then I'm going to take that week as a variable, so set variable. Let's say week week number. I'll copy this one because I'll need it later. And I'm going to specify from dates this G week number. Okay, what we're going to do then is we're going to go to the layout, and this is where we go to the employee layout, and where we simply do a find, enter find mode. The pause always needs to be off. I'm going to set field, and then I'm going to be in the employees layout, but I'm going to set in dates, see week number. That's where I'm going to do my find. So basically, it's kind of a trick where I'm looking for all the employees that are working in this week number. But the week number, of course, is in the dates table. But if I do that find through the context of my employees, then I can find whichever employee is working in that week. Okay, so I've got my week number. I'm going to go to my employees layout. I'm going to enter find mode, set field, week number. Then I'm going to do set error capture. Actually, only have to set the error capture once per script. So I'll just put this on top here so that I know it's done. Set field. Then I'm going to do perform find. And then I'm going to go to records request page first, so that I definitely arrive on the top record. It's kind of important when you do a loop. You want to start with your first record first. Okay, so what is going to happen now is I will arrive in this layout employees, and I will have found the 3 employees, like I have now. I found 3 out of 4 that are going to be working in week 18. So when I have those, what I need to do now is first take the first one, John Doe. So I need to take his ID, which is here. I need to take that with me. So I already have the week number as a variable. Now I need to take this employee ID as a number, as a thing, and I'm basically as a variable. And then basically what I'll do is I'll go here in kind of this kind of layout. I will search for the employee and for the week number, and then I will find, like I have found here, and I have this little layout. I find their kind of schedule for them personally for that week. So, okay, so what do I need for that? I will start my loop, because all the actions that I'm going to be doing from now on, they will repeat for every single employee. So that's what happens in a loop. Is it's a repetition. Now, extremely important for every loop is that you end your loop properly, because if you don't end your loop properly, you will get really stuck. You will get totally stuck. So I will where are we gonna do this? I will set a variable, and that's gonna be my employee ID. Oops, I have to actually set it as well with a value. The value is very simple. It's gonna be from employees, the primary key. So I need that one. And is there anything else that I need? You know what, just for easy sake, I will just set a variable, and I will take their email address with me as well, just so that I have it, just so that I don't need to look it up again later. And from employees, I will get their email. Now, kind of important is if I don't have an email address for a person, I can't do these steps, because the whole essence is that I'm going to email them a PDF. If I don't have their email address, I don't really have to do this. So so I can add another check. Let's say an if, not a fi, but an if statement, and I can say if is empty employees email. Then I don't want to do this whole thing. So I'm going to reverse this, and I'm going to say if not is empty. Then I do want to do all of this stuff. So if the email address for the employee is not empty, then I do want to do all of these things. If not, I'm not going to do anything. If not is empty, their email address, then I'm going to set the employee ID as a variable and their email address as a variable. Then I'm going to go to layout. I will just go to the layout that I have here, my list schedule, and then I'm gonna do the whole thing that actually my find script does as well. I'm gonna enter find mode. Pause can be turned off, and I'm gonna do set field. Two set fields. Which fields am I gonna set? I'm gonna set my dates. Employee ID FK with my employee ID. If you don't want to make any mistakes, you're just going to copy the name of the variable from here, and then you're going to specify that calculated result as so that it's not incorrect. And I'm going to copy this step because I'm also going to specify the week number. There you go. And the week number is going to be the one that I've set here. So $week number. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my list, I'm gonna enter find mode, I'm gonna set my employee and week number there, and then what I want to do is I want to do perform find, and I also want to do a sort with the dialog off, very important, and I want to specify my sort because I'm on this layout right now and it is already sorted. FileMaker is suggesting this sort, which is exactly the one that I want. It's kind of cool. Now that this is done, I'm going to want to go to that other layout, so go to layout, and because I'm doing a lot of changes from the one layout to the other, actually I don't even have to do all of this on this layout, I can just do this on my print schedule layout as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm immediately going to go to my print schedule layout. There's no need to go to my kind of cute looking layout. So print schedule, enter find mode, set field, perform find, sort records. Okay, when all of that is done, I'm going to want to save this PDF. What is that called? Save records as PDF. And now it gets a little tricky because now I'm going to have to save this PDF in some sort of way. How am I going to do this? I've got this folder that I've got here where my FileMaker file kind of lives. I'm going to make a new folder here that is called PDF schedules. Okay, that's where I want to store my PDF. Okay, in order to save this as a PDF, what I would like to do is make a file name first. So set variable, and how is my variable gonna be? Let's have a look in the settings here because this is always a bit tricky. Let's make this a bit smaller here. Okay, so I'm not going to append this to an existing PDF. I am going to specify the output file, and just in order to get the format of the path that I need, I'm going to do an add file. I've got my file here in this folder, PDF schedules, and this is called entitled PDF. That's just kind of to create an example. And if I look at it here now, this is the kind of file path, file name that I need. So I'm going to copy this one here. I'm going to hit OK so that I can go into my set variable, and I'm going to call this one file name, and then I'm going to put my value in here, v. Okay, so now I can cut this up in a few different pieces. So I've got my file PDF schedules, and that slash, that's kind of stuff that I need, so I'm going to put quotes around that one, and I'm going to put a little space here because I don't want this untitled. That's kind of annoying. And I do want to have this PDF, so I'm going to put quotes around that one as well. So now I have three elements. I have this file path that I need, I have my PDF that I need, and in between I've got this like untitled that I don't really like. I want this to be a bit more specific and tell me exactly what this PDF is about. So I'm going to make a little text in here, which is week space, and then I'm going to add, so and the week number. Actually, I have that week number as a variable. It was something like $, week number, I think. And then I'm going to add some more stuff. I'm going to add a space dash space, and I'm going to add the name of my employee. I also had no, I actually don't have that name. I'll just use from employees the full name. That should work fine. Okay, cool. So I've got that. So now I have my variable of $file name, which I'm going to copy. And so in my save records as PDF, I can now say that I want to use my variable for my PDF. I'm not going to automatically open my PDF because I'm just going to create an email with an attachment, but I'm not going to do that through here because this doesn't allow me any options. Let's see, what else do we have? Create directories is off. Yep, I don't need that. Specify options. Let's do records being browsed. Yep, that's all good. Okay, so then what I want to do is send email. Send mail, sorry. With the dialog on, that's fine. So now what I want to do is I want to send an email to the $email that I had made before. So $email. And then I want to do like your personal schedule for, and then I want to add the week number. Your personal schedule for needs to be in quotations, and then I want to add something, so and then I had, what did I have, like a $week number or something. $week number. Okay, so that's this one, and then here I can do like a message if I want. Hi, and then I could put in their name, but that just becomes very complicated, these things. Specify calculation. God, these are always very difficult. Hi. And then I will need to have, and then I need to have employees phone, first name, maybe hi, first name, and then I want to have a comma, and then I want to have a new paragraph. See, these things become so difficult. I'll just keep this message very simple. This is your schedule for week, and then I'll just add and then I'll just do $week number. There, let's just keep it simple, shall we? Let's do and this one, and then let's do a couple of these, because I've noticed that with attachments on a Mac, it's best to keep a few spaces there. And then I want to attach a file, and that's going to be $file name. Okay, cool. Personal schedule. Okay, that looked kind of good. So that, then I will do that, this whole thing, and when it's done, I will then have to go back, go to layout. I will go to my employees layout, because now the trick about this whole the trick about the looping is that as soon as you're done with the first one with John Doe, you will then go on to Jane Doe and do the whole loop again. Then you will go to Jill and do the whole loop again, and you will stop when this list is basically finished. So then you go to layout employees, and then you do go to record request page, not the first, but then you go to next, and then exit after last needs to be on. And this is what I said before, when you do a loop, you always have to make sure that your loop ends properly, and this is a way to end this loop. You're always going to go to the next record. As soon as you go to the next record and there is no next record, your loop will effectively stop, and that's very important that you actually stop your loop. Okay, now I do have to say that in this case what I did in my settings, I just used send via email client. Normally speaking, in this case you will do send via SMTP server, because then you don't always get this message that pops up. Now what we're going to see is our email client is going to pop up with a whole bunch of like new email notifications, which I don't really normally would want to have. If I have a lot of people and a lot of emails to send, I'm just going to want to use SMTP server. But if I select this now, I'm going to have to set up all those logins and passwords and all of that. I don't really want to do that now, so I'll just keep it simple like this. Okay, another thing is, oops, let's save this whole script. I want to go here. Another thing with me now is this is not really going to work because my employees don't actually have emails. So I've got jane@email.com. Let's do john@email.com, and then let's leave my Jill without an email address. Let's see if that works. And then if I try out this whole script, I'm probably gonna get like an email message pop-ups, etc. So therefore, boom, let's put this one up here. Okay, let's try to run this script, but because it's a loop, very important to test if my script actually works by putting up my script debugger and my data viewer. And then I can figure out if this actually works or not. So let's run the script. Did I attach this script already? No, I have to do button setup, perform the script, loop personalized emails. I'm gonna check this button. Okay, so let's try this out. It's going to perform my script, and because my script debugger now has halted my script, I can now click through this one step at a time, so I can see that everything is going well. If it's empty, it's not empty, so this is not going to happen. I'm going to set my week number as a variable, which is, I can see the values here. My week number is 18, so that's been set. Good. Let's go to my layout of employees. Let's enter find mode, set this week number, perform the find, and again I find my 3 people, which is good. So I'm going to go to the first one, and this is when my loop starts. If not is empty, employees email, then this whole thing is going to run. Oh, and I've already found a mistake that this one should be out. Oops, you guys can see this, it's too low. If my email is not empty, this needs to happen, but of course with my Jill, my last one, she doesn't have an email. So what's going to happen is my if will not happen, so my loop will kind of be an eternal loop, because this one is placed inside my if statement, and because my Jill doesn't have an email address, this will never be triggered. So I've already discovered a mistake by myself now. So let's go to my script workspace really quick. See, if I would not have used my script debugger, I would have now been stuck in an eternal loop. So that would have been kind of annoying. So let's take this one and let's put it out of the if statement. So that even if my person doesn't have an email, I do have to go on then to the next employee. So that's very important. So let's save this one and let's close this one. Okay, let's go back and do the script again. Okay, let's go through this again. I was already here somewhere. So I have found my employees, and now I'm gonna do like if not is empty, employee mail. Okay, so I'm gonna set their ID and their email. As you can see here, we're gonna go to the layout of print schedule. Let's enter find mode. We're going to perform the find, then we're going to sort the records, and we can see now that we have for John Doe his whole schedule for the week. He's not doing a lot this week. So now let's set a file name. So we should have a file name here. Yep. So we have made PDF schedules. Okay, so the file name is week 18 John Doe. If I look into my browser in my PDF schedules, I don't have anything here yet, but I should get something there soon, because save records as PDF is next. So if we perform that one, then I get a PDF that gets created here. Okay, now I've got the send mail option here. This shows up on my other screen, and this effectively shows that I've got an email that says, "Hi John, this is your schedule for week 18," and it's got this email, this PDF attached to it, which is kind of cool. So let's kind of go, now we're going to go to my employees again, and so if we make this a bit smaller, we can see on the background. Okay, so now it will go to the next record. Boom, so now it's on Jane Doe, and the loop starts again. And if not is empty email, then it's going to dive in here, and it's going to do this whole thing again. So now it's going to make the schedule for Jane Doe, and you can see she's got a lot more records. And then again, her PDF is created, and then send mail happens. Yep, as you can see, hi Jane, this is your schedule for week 18. Your personal schedule for week 18 is going to go to jane@email.com, and so this is her personal schedule attached as a PDF. So I'm going to drag this off to my other screen there, and I'm going to go to the next one, and now let's have a look. for Jill. You can see that her employee's email is empty, so let's see what happens then. It's going to skip this whole thing because there's no point in creating an email for her if she doesn't have an email address. What you could do is make it print out or something, and then print out all the ones for those that don't have an email. In this case, nothing happens. Then I'm going to go to the next one, and there is no one there. So that's when my script just kind of ends, which is great. It's perfect, which is exactly what I want. Maybe one more thing, which what I would want for my script is to, if it ends, to go to layout, original layout, so that I end up again in my list view. Now, one thing I'm going to get in my list view when I get there is I've got my Jane Doe on week 18. And maybe what I want to do is just set field. Clear out my Jane Doe. And then do that find again so that I kind of arrive back at a list that has all the records for that week, but not just those of one employee. So for dates, I've got my gfind employee. Hold on, what am I doing? I want my gfind employee to be empty, and then what I want to do is I want to perform that script. Perform that script that does the find. So from list, oops, I've got this find in week list there because my week is still set here to 18. That's great. Okay, let's try that. Let's just run this whole script without boom boom. Okay, that's good. It didn't really do the end there. Oh, it's actually still busy. Sorry, the script is running. It's making these emails for me, and it ends here now with no employee selected here and with everyone showing for the whole week. So that's a good ending to my script. And maybe one thing I want to add to my script is a freeze window at the beginning so that I don't really see all those layout changes. So I'm going to save this, and then maybe it'll work a bit faster as well. So now if I click this button, it's going to start to do its whole thing, and I don't see the screen changing, and it's just running through, and it's making all these emails for me. And maybe because now I don't know, because I'm not seeing anything, I don't know when it's done. It's actually done right now. Maybe in my script what I could do is add in the end a bit of a beep and a show custom dialog that says all done, your emails have been sent. So there, that looks like a good script to me. It was again a long explanation, but hey, I think it's very interesting. And now you've got kind of a whole scheduling solution. And of course, if you would click this button now, it would send like the personalized emails for that other week then. Okay, very long video, but I think we learned a lot of really interesting stuff. Okay, ciao.